Well, the great thing about technology is that you can just start and we can go back and fix it. So I want to say hello to my newest partner in crime, Mr. Keith to the new crib, Tate. And I don't know how you feel about that, but every time I practice, I say that to myself.
It's all good.
And just saying hello to you, man, getting started. I think we got a great opportunity. We got the camera going too. Let's see if I move to this. My right is my left. Okay. Oh, great. That's a pretty balanced shot. Yeah. It does give you that awkward feel, like they sitting on top of each other.
All right.
Here we go, man. Coach's Culture podcast. Got some great things to talk about. We've had some chance to, work through technology and look at how we can bring the best content to people. Hopefully, we can get some people enjoying what we're doing. How have you been doing, man?
Doing good, staying busy, getting ready.
Yeah, it's that time, Coach.
Yes, indeed.
The season. It's funny you say that because that's actually what's going on right here. We're transitioning seasons from football for many going into basketball, the dominant sports, but you have wrestling and other sports out there, volleyball and all those things. So we're not diminishing those sports, but we're just talking about sports that we're a little bit more active in.
Correct.
I'm transitioning out being with the team, Waverly as it is during the football season, and they're not going to be progressing to the playoffs. So now you're talking about athletes who get ready to change and come over to see you, Coach,
yes,
for basketball season.
Absolutely. I know, definitely. Just got the freshman basketball schedule the other day.
Oh,
so
wow,
that was
the schedule's out.
That definitely made it real.
Okay,
so,
okay.
A couple more games that we need to add on, but that definitely made it real. I'm actually going to be trying to do some conditioning with the kids, with some of the kids before basketball season starting this week. So I'm definitely excited to get that going.
Now, where are you at with the status of the actual team itself? Where is that T word that's out there, tryouts? What's the status of that right now?
Tryouts November 5th. So
November 5th.
Less than a month.
Oh, wow.
Out, so it's definitely coming up in the next few weeks.
So you got the elections and you got tryouts. So
Right.
it's like, what are you going to do?
Right. So yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. You usually get about 30 or so kids coming out at the freshman level. And,
how many do you normally plan to keep?
I keep 15.
15.
I keep 15. You never know who's going to get a growth spurt,
Sure.
develop more skills over
Sure.
the years. So we keep 15 on freshmen. And then go from there.
Sure. Well, it's easy to talk about the anxiety that the young people may feel, and we could definitely touch on that. But what kind of anxiety is on that for you as a coach? You're talking about you got 30 kids to choose from. You want to pick the right 15 or so.
Right.
Or is there any anxiety for you in that process at all?
I think not anxiety anymore, but there's still just me having at heart.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to cut any kids.
Sure.
You just don't want to cut any kids. It's definitely a tough thing to do because you don't want them thinking, whatever, that they might, internalize that.
Oh, sure.
And,
sure.
make it, them not making the basketball team about other things about themselves.
Sure.
And
to pause on that for a second, you make a very good point, especially in today's generation of athletes, as far as, how, quote unquote, rejection, how they may take that. And as an older person or the older coach, they may say, you got to just be tough and deal with it. But society seems to be kind of mixed on how we're supposed to respond to that.
Right. So it's two things that I do during my tryouts from Jump Street. So I'll take it back really quick. One of my very best friends, my freshman year of basketball that I played, got cut from the basketball team. Like, he's like a brother to me.
Wow.
Like, when he got cut, I actually I'm in ninth grade or whatever, but I cried.
You made it, he got cut?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I cried for him.
Oh, man. Sure.
Dang, I know that sucks. He loves basketball.
And you made the team, you cried, so how did he feel as someone in that position?
So, from that respect, I always took that now into coaching. So I tell the kids from Jump Street, if I hear anybody saying anything to anyone about not making the basketball team or you suck or you would not be on the team.
Wow.
I tell them that first day of tryouts,
you tell those
second day tryouts.
who are involved in the process that.
Right there in the process, I say, if I hear anything about anyone in the halls talking about someone, you making the basketball team or you being a better basketball player than someone does not make you a better person than someone. Does not make you a better student. Does not make you a better anything. You're just better at basketball.
Sure.
That's it, and that does not allow you to make fun of someone else. You need to take the opportunity to be a little bit more mature and encourage them, or just say, hey, hopefully next year you do. or don't say anything.
Sure, Coach. That's a really important lesson coming from someone in your position, because if you don't say that, it will be like throwing a young person to the wolves, because they will be brutal in person, social media, and there's like no balance. But for you to step up as an authority figure and someone who's respected and say, "Let me say this today." Don't talk bad or judge anyone for not being able to make this team, and give a perspective.
I don't, not because I hate the bullying thing.
Sure.
I just, whether you want to call it bullying, when we were in school we roasted each other. Like I said, it's different if you have a tight knit group of friends that you do that with. Don't do it with other kids.
Sure. Coach, let's talk about the dark side of that for a moment. Let's talk about the underbelly of that. What is it do you think makes a person want to tease someone who didn't make the team, whether they're on the team or not? It's like the person who didn't even try out would dare say, "You suck, you didn't make the team." Am I right?
That happens a lot. That happens a lot. There's kids that don't try out, but they're the first ones to say something. They're the kids that, like I said, has the most to say.
Sure.
But the least to give.
Sure.
And that's what I also tell the kids in the tryouts too. I said there's going to be kids that say something, they didn't even have the heart.
Didn't have the heart.
They didn't have the desire. They didn't have the passion to go out for it. So it's easy for them to say things when they didn't try to risk their pride and ego to make the team.
It's funny, Coach. I'm not being rude and just looking at my phone. As you say that, I'm thinking of a quote that I sent to a client, a young person, about that, and it's by Theodore Roosevelt. So we got some time, so humor me for a second. Let me read this quote. I think it's very specific to this moment. "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who was actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does it actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be those cold and timid souls who never know victory nor defeat."
Wow, that's deep.
By Theodore Roosevelt.
That's deep.
Now, I wasn't planning that, but I think,
that definitely correlates. And,
you got these people on the sidelines, and then I think this is one thing we can talk about with the reach I think our podcast has the ability to get. It could be sports and non-sports, but let's talk about, why do people, not take the chance to get out there, and they could find so much negativity in someone else's missteps, who's daring greatly, as opposed, and then, okay, and if we can't even figure out those people, why should we care about what they say?
Right. That's a tough one. For me to answer, I would definitely like to hear more so of why you think so, because it's hard for me to say and I haven't really explored it, because I'm a huge risk taker.
Sure.
My greatest, your quote right there, the long quote.
Sure.
Mine is the greatest risk is not taking one.
Sure.
Which pretty much is almost the same thing.
So your mindset is almost like,
I don't even know that.
Tell you how
I don't even
that
know
is.
that I'm not going to try.
Sure.
Or I'm not going to encourage my friends to try.
Sure.
That is just somehow
so
my
it's a totally
DNA,
different mindset.
No matter what the situation, it's the greatest risk is not taking one. I cannot find out what the result is unless I try.
You know what? I think that's really important to know that there's different kind of people. And for you to say that, your mindset is such that I can't even fathom why, and I'm hearing, I'm here in the studio / condo / place to hang out at, and I don't sense any negative thought in how you're saying it. You're saying that from a genuine place, and I think it's important that people be encouraged with that. So we have these tryouts coming up, and we kind of, stepped off in a different direction, especially when you talk about tryouts and putting yourself out there, and even the word itself, trying. I'm going to try to make this basketball team.
Right.
I'm going to try and put myself out there.
Right.
And so many of us are so fearful of that. So I can appreciate you, Coach, during this very important time in a young person's life that you made a statement. Because many coaches didn't say that. Or maybe they did and didn't have that kind of bearing. For me, it was probably more than 30 kids in the gym, or that could just be my young mind thinking, 25 people was like so many people. But I just remember feeling good about my game, but just feeling that amongst the masses, I had nothing to stand out. And at the time, I didn't have a lot of trick moves because the way I was groomed playing basketball was very fundamental.
Okay.
And I'm proud of that. But you say, oh, I don't have a tricky move or whatnot. But what blew my mind, Coach, is that the actual coach came up to me one day in practice, threw me his actual keys and said, hey, keep my keys. So he was already taking an idea of trust towards me. He said, you're going to be my point guard. And it blew me away. It was kind of like getting tapped on the shoulder for the job before he, he said, you're going to be my point guard. And I was saying, I was still kind of like, wow, out of all these guys, I'm like, well, why me? And he made reference to my fundamentals. So I say that to any young person listening, and I think that still reigns today as a coach. I mean, Coach, are you looking for the person who can put on an and one mixtape, or somebody can put the left and right hand up?
That's one of the things I talk to the kids about. I mean, I need to trust you.
Need to be able to trust you.
I need to trust you, and that's knowing the plays, knowing where to be, all those things. Because you might be able to, do the best ball handling, get to the basket the best, but are you messing up the plays on defense or offense that's costing us points?
Wow, Coach.
So it's like, why would I play you over someone that may not be as flashy, but they're going to execute?
So staying on that topic of trust, because that's really interesting that both of our experiences relate to that. What are examples, like you said, of something a young person should be trying to do? Because I think immediately we see, impress the coach with what I know how to do. So I want to go into my bag and do everything I can. But look at me, coach, look at me, look at what I can do.
Right.
So, but when you talk about gaining that trust, what are other examples of what a student can be doing, a student athlete can be doing to gain that trust?
Really, it's about, for me, is putting in the work.
Putting in the work.
Just the simple fact of you putting forth the effort in tryouts, in practice, that helps me see the consistency that you're willing to put in the extra work. I mean, because it's amazing during tryouts that you see kids that aren't running as hard as they can.
Sure.
Running hard doesn't mean that you're the fastest.
Sure.
Running hard is running. You can tell when someone is running as fast as they can.
Sure.
So with the trust thing is really, again, knowing where to be at on the court, following instructions.
Okay.
I talk very loud, and I always ask the kids, does anyone have a question? Please ask now. Because if you mess up, I'm going to be upset with you.
Sure.
You had the opportunity to ask.
Sure. Now, with that right there, that's like saying, that's a tough one, Coach. I'm going to play devil's advocate only because, does any young person want to be the one to raise their hand and show that they don't know? Do they have the courage to know that? And you, as a mature veteran coach, you would appreciate that, but they may be thinking along the lines of their peers, is like, I don't want to show that I don't know.
And it's few and far between that they do. Obviously sometimes no one asks questions.
Sure.
And someone still messes
up.
Right.
Because
they didn't know. But I really try to reiterate to them that I'm going to be upset with you if you do not know after I gave you the instruction and gave you an opportunity to ask. So you better come out and ask.
Sure.
If you do not know, because you're going to look more foolish when you're messing up.
Sure.
Instead of just asking. So I try to relay that part of it, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right, but that's my mindset of it is, hey, do you want to look bad messing up, or do you want to look bad by asking a question?
That's really good, because as you say that, I'm reminded of Coach Don Showwater, who you'll probably hear me refer to a lot, USA Basketball Junior National Team coach, 10 gold medals. He talks about he only tells players what they need to do twice, and he says it in a low voice, only because he wants them to listen. So what you're saying for these freshman trials, which can be one of the most critical moments in a young person's life as it relates to getting out there and being in the arena, the same is being said for the most elite of athletes. So I guess going back to the question I posed as far as, do you expect people to step up? I guess the greater a student or a player is going to be, they'll be the ones who will kind of step up and be more willing to take that chance to share.
Absolutely, and that's what I hope. That's all I can do is hope. And again, I'm still a coach that's learning. Whether I'm 33, whether I'm 60, 80 years old, there's an opportunity to learn. Just what you just said about this coach, Showwater,
Coach Showwater.
Just the saying it low and saying it twice instead of me blaring it out a few times and asking, if they understand the instructions. Maybe that's a better technique for me to use.
I mean, it could be something to look at, only because I thought what was interesting about that is he said, Because if you say it, if they know you're going to say it several times, they won't try to get it sooner. So I thought that was interesting, but I still think that's consistent with what you're saying. By you put the information out there and say, I need you to get this because we're going to move forward.
Right.
And when you talk about the social media generation or situations where attention spans can be so much shorter than we expect, you have to let them know. You have to lock in to be able to have short bursts of information being shared.
Right.
That you have to get.
Right.
And you can't treat it like, you're just at home, playing Fortnite, and there's no knock on Fortnite, but I'm just saying it forces them to lock in a little bit.
Right, absolutely. Have you found that with the football team for Waverly or any other teams that you've been involved with? I mean, have you really seen that is very tangible, the shorter attention span, or is it something that's kind of, overall thing, or do you really see it? From your experience,
I think a good way to summarize how it may be is in how an athlete approaches the game. And an example I'll use is, are you more concerned with starting the game or finishing the game? Now, I just took your question and I tried to summarize that in one way of saying, where is their mindset? Because if you have an athlete who's doing all the right things and working really hard, but their attitude is that if I'm not starting, I'm not succeeding. When you're saying as a coach, and I'm sure you can relate, some people I need to have on the floor when it's really serious and everything is in, up in the air.
Right.
Are you that player? And I think a lot of athletes miss that point.
Right. It's really amazing you just said that, and we can move on. One of the things that I do once the season starts, last year I really had this issue with just having players that should have or could have been starting, that I had to talk to them, but one of the things I do in the beginning of the season, I find stats for plus minus from NBA players.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That really helps, and I hope all coaches are listening, because I think this really helps out a lot, is finding some stats of plus minus for, say, it could be whoever
Explain
it is.
plus minus from a general standpoint.
So and like I said, the plus minus isn't everything. I just want to say that. Okay. The plus minus isn't everything. However, it can help indicate certain things. So plus minus is the amount of points your team is up or behind based on that individual being on the floor. So say for Russell Westbrook is on the floor. What is his plus minus for the minutes that he played during the game? It could be a +2, it could be a -8, it could be a +36.
That's telling, though, to a degree.
To a degree, it can be telling. It's it has its variances just like with anything else. But it, like I said, it can help gauge how well a player is really helping. As Steph Curry, his plus minus is also when he's on the bench, the team's stats go down significantly.
Oh, wow.
When he's on the floor, he has one of the best plus minuses ever.
Really?
So what I do is try to find some stats, of a well-known player, whether it's a Kyrie or Russell or KD, and then also of a player like Marcus Smart on the Boston Celtics.
Yep.
Someone that's
Blue
just
collar,
a dirty guy, just not dirty in the sense of
no, gets down in the mud.
Exactly, right defense. He does all the intangible things. Andre Iguodala type. I find their stats and say, hey, he played this many minutes. He shot 5 times. He only had 6 points, but his plus minus was a 12. Where, say, for this game, Kyrie, he scored 27 points. He had this many assists or rebounds, but he had 5 turnovers, and he was a +1 or a -3. So I try to get the kids to realize, I need you to be a plus.
Sure.
How can you affect the game while you're in the game? So that's one of the very first things I talk to the team about once I have the teams together after tryouts is plus minus, so that they understand I need you to do more than just score.
That's great, and I think that's also a great way to help them in their potential, especially if they want to transition. Because what does every kid tell you if you ask what their dream is? They want to not only play D1, they want to go to the NBA. I'm not mad at you, but I think what you're doing, and I find myself doing it with my work with young people too. I'm not a dream, killer. I'm a dream clarifier, and you're telling them, listen, okay. For example, and not that we're trying to talk NBA, but I think that's probably a perfect segue. We can talk about a little college ball. Michigan State, being a host of last week's Pistons and Cavs game. But just to say about this NBA piece with our young people, they really need to be able to get a perspective. And one thing that really was helpful, someone told me, actually the NBA scout said, normally there are only 1 or 2 superstars on the team. Everybody else is a role player.
Absolutely.
Now you do the math. Now you can say you want to be that one superstar, but it's very likely that once you get into the stratosphere of those 300, 450 or so NBA players, that maybe you can be, you know, a superstar at one point, but there's a very good chance that you'll still be some type of role player in some.
Find a role.
Got to find a role to want to stick around. So, excellent information, Keith, talking about this high school experience, you know, trials being around. Let me just add a few things before we do move on for any, you know, parents that may be listening, some good suggestions. When we talked about this high school piece and the anxiety that the players may be going through, you know, that's a natural thing. We all experience that, whether it's looking for a new job, whether it's a performance, whatever may be sports or non-sports. But one thing I do want to add is some things that, you know, parents can do, others can do to help young people as they're dealing with this anxiety. Remind them of their confidence bank. That's something I talk about a lot with my clients that I work with, as in you couldn't go to the bank and withdraw money unless you've already put money in there, right?
Absolutely.
So it's really important that we create this highlight reel in our mind. And I think the challenge many people may have with that, Keith, is that they don't want to be so arrogant and conceited by constantly filling their minds with these past great accomplishments.
Okay.
However, I'm saying from a scientific standpoint, I'm here to say that there's a great benefit to being able to kind of categorize and log those things in your video reel when you need to go to it.
You have to draw back to it.
You have to draw back to it. And I talk to my athletes all the time about building that confidence bank so when it's necessary for you to go to it, you can do it. So while you're on your way to trials, where you're getting ready for trials, you're thinking about those times that you've excelled. You're thinking about those times that you've done well. What do you think about that?
I think that's an excellent point. I mean, I think that's something that's definitely necessary and needed for anyone in every walk of life.
Sure.
You know, you definitely got to go back to the times that you know that you excelled and you did good, and that's something that parents should definitely instill as far as encouragement and positivity into their kids, and reminding them of, hey, you did this is, you know, X, Y, and Z. You put in this amount of work. You did this in this game before. That you should be able to, you know, I know that you can do it, and just giving them positivity. So I think that's a great point.
That's good for coaches and parents, but you make a good point when you talk about that. And one thing we'll also explore, and I'll be trying to keep the audience abreast of, is what's taking place with the state of play study that's taking place out of Southeast Michigan that we've talked about before, and what you've kind of touched on, Coach, as a great item coaches can use, because and many times coaches, whether it's a generational thing or not, aren't really big on helping a player replay their accomplishments. And if they do, at what time and place are they replaying it for them? So it's not often you have a coach come up to you and pat you on the back and say, man, remember when you did all these great things. But I think that may be a suggestion that coaches can use as a tool to even tell, for example, in your tryouts or, you know, in a game situation before the game, hey guys, think about, you know, your confidence highlight, you know, your going to your confidence bank. So encourage them to try to pick up these things, so it's not on a coach to be able to have 15 different highlights he has to replay, as opposed to telling his young people to unlock that.
All right. And going to what you just said, I mean, it goes back to what we talked about before and what you discussed as well in one of your videos, is just the evolving as a coach. Because no matter, you know, whether it was coaches from before didn't do that or now, or some still do or don't, if you're evolving as a coach and you care about the kids, you should be able to naturally still enforce positivity and encouragement to the kids. I don't know, and you know, again, you know, I coach freshman basketball, so I'm not varsity. I haven't won a state championship. I haven't went to the press or anything like that. And it's not to say that I'm peachy keen with the kids all the time, because I'm not. However, I can't expect for them to perform good if I don't give them encouragement, if I don't give them positivity. I don't want the kids to be, I want them to be respectful and don't want to necessarily disappoint me. In a sense, I don't know how that sounds.
No, you hear like players say all the time they want to play for their coach.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but I don't want them to be scared to play. And I think sometimes that's where some coaches might get lost, which we're just kind of discussing, where they might not encourage the kids to go back into their, you know, confidence bank.
Or if they do, it's not done in a ratio that's enough for what this young person may need.
Right, exactly. And I just, and again,
it may be way too much for the coach as far as his ratio, and definitely not enough for the kids. So now you have this imbalance.
Yeah, that's the thing, you know, I just think that, you know, especially at my level, at the freshman level, I'm very, hey, you can shoot if it's a good shot.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a halfway decent shot,
Mm-hmm.
go ahead and shoot. I'm gonna let you rock out. But defense, diving on the floor,
Sure.
taking charges, passing the ball, all those other things, being in the right spot. Those things better be on point. Those are no excuse. No,
can't slack on that.
Can't slack on that. But I give them encouragement on the offensive side of the ball. Just shoot. Hey, I got confidence you can make that shot.
So you'll balance that by giving them opportunity. Now, Keith, as you say all these things, and you make reference to your freshman coaching experience, which has been great, and I've been a fan of what you've been doing, and you talk about, I need you to give me the effort on the defensive end and all that gritty things. I can't help but think about a coach not too far from here when you talk about players evolving from freshman high school and going to the collegiate level. Let's talk about Michigan State, which was, like I just said, the host for this recent Detroit Pistons Cleveland Cavaliers, and actually it was the Cleveland Cavaliers home game,
right?
Which was interesting. I think it was public knowledge that Dan Gilbert, who was the proud Michigan State alum and also, as you know, owner of the Cleveland Cavs, worked that into fruition. Got a chance to exchange some pleasantries with him in the back of the house at the end of the game, which was cool. But also going there, it was Michigan State's home. Right. So you see Coach Izzo, you see members of staff, you see all of the team right there. So before we jump way ahead to the NBA discussion that we have on tap, when you talk about coaches evolving and devolving, and this is saying with all due respect to Coach Izzo, he's let me into his practices. I've been able to be around that team for some time. Actually, I departed my experience with them prior to a lot of those allegations that come out. I always like to make that clear, but I'm appreciative of being able to have been around that experience, and anything I share or talk about is done, I think, in a matter of respect and also in a way to help educate others. So basically we're using Coach Izzo as a great case study.
Okay.
And he's fair because he's so close to us and he's such an open person, and he'll be the first one to tell you. He and I have talked about his disdain for social media and all those things a long time ago. But to the question you kind of raised about a recent YouTube video that I did, and I appreciate you bringing that up, about as a coach, are you evolving or devolving? Let me play devil's advocate on behalf of Coach Tom Izzo first and foremost. Because I know what I can say, what others can say about where they think there's some room for growth, even with his Hall of Fame status. But I will give him credit in saying that, we have now moved Michigan State to be a one-and-done program. Now, that may be controversial within itself, but there was a time, like the Wisconsins and whatnot, and even before the Dukes made the transition, that Michigan State, you were playing 3 years, 4 years. Right. So now you had the likes of Miles Bridges, and to say, will we ever have a talent like that? That's another question. Will we ever see that? But I think we all know that Miles could have been a first-round draft pick his freshman year. So giving credit to Coach Izzo for being able to attract the type of talent, and I think that Josh Jackson, a later top draft pick, was also closely in the running at one point. So there was a lot going on. So with that, making my first statement about Coach Hall of Fame Izzo, being that he has evolved to be able to attract these NBA top tier recruits. Recruits. What else would you say can be some other areas that evolving could probably take place, or can we see that taking place with a Hall of Fame coach?
It's tough, and like you said earlier, because we're speaking about someone that is majorly successful.
Sure.
And since he's been successful, we expect that result.
Sure.
Or those results.
All the time.
All the time.
Nick Saban effect, they want you to win all the time.
So when there's a slippage, or you don't do as good as what you may have before, a few years ago or what have you, then we want to start picking apart what you're doing.
Definitely.
However, if you would have won last year or got to the Elite Eight, Final Four,
sure,
maybe we're not having the discussion of is he evolving or devolving or what have you. So, so again, it's a very tough topic to discuss. But I mean, it's fair in the sense of is he evolving in the sense of giving more, I guess, freedom to the players? Is the style of play that he's doing, is it part of kind of the modern game right now?
Sure.
Whether, and I'm not saying this word negatively, but negatively is jacking up threes.
Sure.
Are they spacing the floor? Are they doing more pick and rolls? Because I mean, Cassius is a great ball handler and passer and can see the floor. I mean, just magnificently.
Sure, absolutely.
So I just feel like there's some things, whether with his players, whether it's recruitment or giving them a little bit more freedom to play or evolving the system. Sometimes I don't know if he's actually evolving in that way and if that could be of a great benefit.
Sure. So with that, does it help to ask, from what you're saying, does he have a program that players have to fit into, or does he have a program that fits the players that come?
So before, I would say he would definitely has a program that a player needs to fit into.
Okay.
That he's going to recruit a certain type of player.
Sure.
That is going to fit that mold of, hey, we're going to get the Goran Sutans and I think it was like Grangers and the kind of the stretch four type guy they develop after their freshman and sophomore year. So their junior year they're ready to play and contribute
because they're going to be around for a while. Exactly. That's the kind of program we have.
Exactly. So it's hard to say. I feel like he is stuck in the middle. And as anybody would like to tell you, you don't want to be on both sides of the fence. So I feel like he's straddling the line between, all right, am I getting the Jaren Jackson, the Miles Bridges, and a couple other top tier recruits? And he went after Jabari Parker some years ago pretty hard. They kind of came in second place. So I mean, he's went after them, but never really got them. And what did they not come because of him in the program? Because hey, no, I need more opportunity. I need Coach K. I need Coach Cal. I need Bill Self that's going to allow me to rock out a little bit more.
Right, because you do see those programs being a little bit more designed around whoever that player is, it seems.
Right, and it's funny because that's why I feel like he's straddling the line right now. Because again, he's getting some of the top tier recruits, but still doing some of the things with his program that made him successful. But you have a Jaren Jackson, you need to give him the ball. You have a Miles Bridges. How else can we get him to be better utilized and be more productive? And so this is the funny thing. You look at Villanova, you look at North Carolina, they're going back to the kind of like Michigan State. We're going to get the kids, develop for a few years, 2-3 years, and we're going to be ready to win championships.
Instead of them just trying to get the next best kid who's going to go right to the lottery, we're going to get some kids, like you say, develop for some time.
Like who has Roy Williams had over the last several years? That was a one and done.
Not that you could think of.
Right, Villanova. I mean,
and then,
hasn't been
and both those teams were in the national championship 2 years in a row, going back and forth.
Right.
That says a lot. That's a really good point.
So I feel like he's straddling the line. Sorry, that was a long answer.
No.
I just feel like he's kind of straddling the line between you need to be the player to fit into the program as opposed to, we're going to try to adjust and be more flexible.
No, you make a good point when you say straddling the line. So I'll ask this follow-up then. If he's straddling the line, which I don't disagree with, how much of an impact does last season's ending play, Jaren Jackson being on the bench, even a Nick Ward, if I remember correctly, being on the bench, or just, that loss, how much or how important is this next season early on, or I guess the whole season, to determine where he'll really be at? And does that impact, this is just you and I talking, does that impact, his legacy?
Honestly, I think this year is going to be a telling year. I mean, I think I don't know him personally, and I'm not a Michigan State fan, and I'm not, a super Spartan fan or whatnot, but I feel like he's going to be